Terran space is forbidden. Cross our borders again, and you will not return. Send your fleets, and they will vanish. Challenge us, and we will erase you." The image changed. Behind the speaker, the camera pulled outward, revealing Earth. The blue and green world hung in the void, beautiful, fragile, yet surrounded. 1,000 Terran warships encircled the planet, their hulls glinting with silent power. Carriers, dreadnoughts, frigates, more ships than the Council had ever imagined humanity could build. They weren't scattered. They weren't hidden. They were waiting, and every gun was pointed outward. The human's voice returned, softer now, but no less sharp. "We offer peace to those who respect us. We offer silence to those who leave us be. But if you cross us again, if you dare test our resolve, know this: we will not stop at your fleets. We will not stop at your borders. We will burn your empires to ash until nothing remains but silence." His eyes narrowed. "The choice is yours." And then the transmission ended. The galaxy erupted. On worlds across the stars, people screamed, prayed, or sat frozen in fear. Some spoke of human mercy, others of human wrath. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity was no longer a question. Humanity was an answer. In the council chamber, silence reigned. Not even the Emperor's envoy dared to speak. At last, the elder of Varian raised his staff, his voice quiet but unyielding. "The humans have spoken, and unlike us, they do not waste words." Admiral Ral stood outside the chamber, staring at the stars beyond the great windows. His voice was low, meant only for himself. "They gave us a choice, peace or destruction. And still I wonder which path the Empire will take." He closed his eyes, remembering the faces of the survivors, the screams of the destroyed fleets. A part of him already knew the answer. The Empire's pride would not die easily, but humanity's patience had limits, and the day those limits were crossed, the galaxy would know what it truly meant to challenge the Terrans. The council chamber was silent. No shouting, no laughter, no arguments. For the first time in living memory, every delegate sat frozen, the human transmission still echoing in their minds. 1,000 warships had surrounded Earth. Humanity had spoken with calm authority, their ultimatum as simple as it was absolute: peace or annihilation. The elder of Varian leaned heavily on his staff, his ancient voice breaking the silence. "Now you see. I warned you. They are not like us. They do not boast. They do not threaten. They simply act, and when they act, no power in this galaxy can resist them." Some delegates bowed their heads, shame heavy in their eyes. Others clenched their fists, unwilling to yield even in the face of truth. Pride still lingered, but fear had rooted itself deeper. In the outer colonies of the Empire, whispers filled the streets. Traders, miners, civilians, all spoke of humanity's warning. Some said the Terrans were demons. Others said they were saviors, guardians who struck only when provoked, but all agreed on one truth. Never before had the Empire been so humbled. Admiral Ral stood in his private chambers watching the stars. His reflection glimmered against the viewport, his scarred face shadowed in thought. "They have given us a choice," he murmured, "and perhaps, for the first time, it is we who must choose carefully." He thought of the fleets that had burned. He thought of the survivors, haunted eyes, and he thought of Earth, so small, so fragile, and yet defended by a power that defied imagination. "They could conquer us," he whispered, "but they have not. That is the most terrifying truth of all. They do not need the galaxy. The galaxy needs them." Back on Earth, in bunkers deep below the oceans and cities hidden beneath the mountains, Terran leaders gathered once more. "The message is delivered," one general said, his voice steady. "The galaxy knows our strength now. "Another," replied her eyes sharp as steel. "Strength is nothing without resolve. They will test us again. The Empire will not accept humiliation forever." The room fell quiet. Each leader understood the truth. The ultimatum had not ended the war. It had only postponed it. And when the next storm came, humanity would be ready. Far away in the heart of the Empire, the Emperor sat alone in his throne chamber. No advisors, no envoys, just silence. On the floor before him lay reports of dead fleets, erased ships, shattered pride, his hand clenched into a fist. "Primitive," he hissed. "They dare defy us. They dare humiliate the Empire." His pride was a flame that would not die. Even as the truth gnawed at him, he whispered promises of vengeance. And deep in his heart, he swore the Empire would rise again, even if it meant war that would scorch the stars. Across the galaxy, people lived in quiet dread. Every ship that crossed the void, every whisper of movement in the stars carried new weight. Was it a Terran ship watching? Would they speak again? Or would the silence break with thunder? The galaxy held its breath. On a cold night, beneath the skies of Earth, a young human soldier looked up at the stars. He had seen the broadcasts, heard the voices of the Council calling them monsters, demons, unstoppable. But to him, it was simple. "They think we're unstoppable," he whispered. "But we're just us. We fight because we must. We endure because we have no choice. And if they come again, we'll remind them why humanity survives." He clenched his fist, his eyes shining with quiet determination. Not because we're stronger, not because we're smarter, but because we refuse to fall. Within weeks, the largest Imperial fleet ever assembled for a single border action moved toward Earth. 200 warships, carriers, battleships, destroyers, enough firepower to scorch worlds to dust. The message was clear. This was not a test. It was domination. On the bridge of the Imperial Wrath, Marshal Sarath stood tall, his armor gleaming. "Terrans think they can frighten us with shadows. Let them see the fire of the Empire." Officers saluted, their eyes blazing with the certainty of victory. They believed humanity's silence was fear. They believed the Empire's might was unstoppable. But the void has a way of humbling the arrogant. As the fleet crossed the border into Terran space, the silence returned. No defenses, no comms, no resistance, only darkness. The commanders laughed, jeering at the cowardly humans. Some even joked about who would claim Earth's oceans first. But then, one by one, the laughter died. The stars disappeared. At first, the officers thought their screens had malfunctioned. The background of space went dark, vanishing into endless shadow. Then they realized their ships were being swallowed. Massive shapes emerged, silent and vast, blotting out the stars. The Terran fleet had been waiting, and this time they did not hide. "By the void," whispered an Imperial officer. "They were here all along." Dozens, then hundreds of Terran ships appeared. Sleek, angular, impossibly fast. Their surfaces shimmered with shifting light, bending physics in ways the Imperials could not comprehend. They formed a wall, stretching across the void, hemming in the Empire's armada. On the Imperial Wrath, alarms shrieked. "They've locked us!" cried the sensor officer. "Every system, every ship, our codes are compromised." "How?" Sarath barked. "They haven't fired a shot!" But the truth was clear. Humanity did not need to fire yet. They controlled the battlefield before the first shot was even loosed. Then, at last, the humans spoke. A voice thundered across every Imperial channel, cold and absolute. "You were warned. This is Terran space. You are not welcome here." Sarath snarled, fury burning away fear. "All ships attack! Show these creatures the power of the Empire!" Cannons roared. Torpedoes streaked into the dark. Hundreds of ships unleashed their fury, but nothing struck. Every missile, every beam, every shot simply vanished. Caught, redirected, swallowed by invisible shields that shimmered like liquid light. The Terran fleet did not even flinch. Then, they answered. Light ripped across the void as Terran weapons awoke. They did not fire like the Empire's crude cannons. Their weapons bent reality itself. Lances of plasma tore through destroyers as if they were paper. Silent beams cut carriers clean in half, their wreckage scattering like ash. One Imperial battleship tried to retreat, engines flaring, only to be pulled back, engines seized by forces no one could explain before being torn apart without a sound. The void became a graveyard. In minutes, the Empire's mighty fleet was reduced to burning wreckage. Ships scattered, crews screaming into broken comms, their arrogance shattering under the weight of truth. On the bridge of the Imperial Wrath, Serath roared defiance. "We are the Empire! We will not fall to—" And then his ship vanished in a single flash of light. Not destroyed. Erased. Admiral Ral watched from the Capitol as the last transmissions faded. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. He turned to the Emperor, his voice low. "I warned you. The Elder warned you. And now, the Empire bleeds." The Emperor said nothing. For the first time, silence hung over the throne like a shroud. Out in the void, the surviving fragments of the Imperial fleet limped back toward home. Those who lived carried a message of horror. The humans were not primitive. They were predators, and the galaxy had just seen the first strike of their wrath. The council chamber was chaos. Survivors from the Imperial fleet had returned, their ships scarred, their crews hollow-eyed. They stood before the galaxy's most powerful leaders, voices trembling as they described the nightmare they had seen. "They were everywhere," one captain whispered, his uniform torn, his face pale. Silent ships, shadows that swallowed. The stars. Our weapons, our strongest weapons, meant nothing. They erased us as if we were insects. Another survivor broke down mid-sentence, clutching his head, his voice cracking. "We fired everything. Missiles, beams, torpedoes, it didn't matter. They controlled us. They played with us before destroying us." The council delegates shifted uneasily, their pride shaken but not broken. High Marshal Serath was gone, his name already spoken only in shame. But the Emperor's representatives still stood tall, refusing to bow. "These men are liars," one declared, his voice sharp. "Cowards who fled the battle. The humans cannot be what they claim. No race rises so quickly. No world hides such power." But the Elder of Varian rose again, his staff echoing on the floor. His voice cut through the chamber like thunder. "They speak truth. Humanity is not like the others you have conquered. They were forged in war, born in struggle. You mock them as primitive, but it is you who are blind. You have seen their strength now. Do you still laugh?" His words hung heavy. Some delegates lowered their eyes. Others still scoffed, clinging to denial. Admiral Ral stepped forward, his voice steady but grim. "I watched the feeds. I saw the Terran fleet with my own eyes. Ships larger, faster, and more advanced than anything the Empire fields. I saw weapons that tore through our strongest shields like cloth. I saw hundreds of our warships erased in minutes." He paused, his gaze sweeping the chamber. "If you do not believe me, then you have chosen death, because the humans are not coming for conquest. They do not want our worlds. But if we force them, they will burn everything we send against them, and they will not stop." The chamber erupted again, half in fury, half in fear. Some shouted for vengeance, demanding the mobilization of even greater fleets. Others urged caution, whispering that perhaps the Elder's warning should be heeded after all. But the council was broken. Unity had shattered, pride clashing with terror. Outside the chamber, whispers spread faster than fire. Across the galaxy, common people heard the tales of Imperial fleets destroyed, of human warships blotting out the stars, of warnings ignored. In taverns, in streets, in shadowed meeting halls, voices whispered one phrase over and over: the humans are watching. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans remained silent. In underground command centers, leaders reviewed every moment of the battle. Holograms replayed Imperial fleets dying in fire. Their arrogance consumed. "They will come again," one general said. "Yes," replied another. "But next time, it won't just be the Empire. The Council is fractured. Some will beg for alliance. Others will demand war. The galaxy does not know peace when pride is wounded." An old commander leaned forward, his voice low. "Let them decide. We will not beg. We will not kneel. We will simply remind them again and again why Terran space is forbidden." Back in the council chamber, a delegate from the Hilari Confederation stood, his voice shaking. "If humanity holds such power, perhaps we should speak to them. Seek peace. If they wished to conquer us, would they not have done so already?" His words sent a ripple through the chamber. It was true. The humans had not invaded, had not expanded, had not claimed worlds. They had only defended their borders, but the Emperor's envoy slammed a fist against the railing. "Peace? With primitives? We are the Empire. We cannot bow to fear. We must crush them before their power grows further." The chamber split in two. Half shouted for peace, half for war. And the elder of Varian whispered to himself, unheard in the storm, "They do not grow stronger. They already are. And the more you resist, the more they will show you." That night, in the council's private chambers, Admiral Raul stood alone, staring at the stars. He thought of the survivors' eyes, haunted, broken. He thought of the ships erased in silence, and he thought of the humans, always watching, always waiting. "They will force our hand," he murmured, "and when they do, the galaxy will break." The galaxy trembled. Rumors spread faster than light, carried from world to world by trembling survivors. The Empire's fleet, the strongest ever sent against a single world, was gone, destroyed, erased in minutes. But the Council still argued. Some demanded revenge, others begged for restraint. No voice could command unity. Pride and fear clashed like storms, threatening to tear the galaxy apart. And then, without warning, the humans spoke. Every channel, every frequency, every network in the galaxy went dark for one heartbeat. Then, a single transmission replaced them all. A human face appeared, calm, steady, lit by the glow of a warship's bridge. Behind him, shadows of massive Terran vessels loomed like silent guardians. His voice was firm, measured, carrying the weight of an entire species. "We are humanity." The chamber of the council froze. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. "You sent fleets against us," the human continued. "You entered our space, ignored our warnings, mocked our patience. You called us primitive, weak, laughable, and yet your armadas burn in silence while we still stand." He leaned forward, his eyes like steel. "Understand this. We do not seek your worlds. We do not covet your empires. We do not hunger for your thrones. But we will never kneel, we will never bow, and we will never forgive those who strike at us." The words struck harder than any weapon. They carried no boasting, no threats, only truth. In the council chamber, the Emperor's envoy shifted uneasily, sweat glistening on his brow. Yet the human's voice continued, relentless. The border of Terran space stretched before the Imperial scout fleet like a dark sea. No signals, no defenses, no patrols. To the Imperials, it looked empty, too empty. Captain Varric of the Obsidian Spear stood tall on his command deck, his chest swelling with pride as the stars shifted before him. "Mark this day, crew. We are the first to step into forbidden space. We will return as heroes, remembered as the ones who proved the Elder's words, nothing but myths." His officers cheered. The arrogance of the Empire burned brightly within them. The fleet of 6 scout ships moved forward, engines glowing against the endless void. They crossed the invisible line, entering Terran territory. No alarms triggered, no ships appeared. Nothing moved in the dark. For the first few hours, everything was calm. Too calm. "Strange," murmured the sensor officer. "No comm traffic, no trade signals, not even background chatter. It's as if this sector is dead," Varric smirked. "Dead or terrified, either way it belongs to us now." But as time stretched, the unease grew. The emptiness was unnatural. In every sector of the galaxy, even in wild space, there were signs of life. Traders, miners, smugglers. Here, there was only silence. Then the lights flickered. "Report!" Varric barked. "Power surge across the grid, Captain. No cause detected." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The surge came again, brief, sharp, like something brushing against the ship's systems. Then it vanished. On the Iron Fang, another scout ship, the captain cursed as his navigation console went dark for 2 seconds before restarting. His engineer swore nothing was wrong, but something had touched the ship. Hours passed. More anomalies spread through the fleet. A life support alarm blared for no reason. Weapons locked themselves for an instant before unlocking. Lights dimmed, then brightened. "Something is in our systems," whispered one officer. But when the engineers scanned, they found nothing. No intrusions, no signals, no trace. On the bridge of the Obsidian Spear, the tension thickened. The crew avoided meeting each other's eyes, their earlier arrogance fading into unease. The silence of Terran space felt alive, like an ocean watching them. Suddenly, the sensor officer's console lit up. "Contact!" Every officer leaned forward, hearts racing, but the screen showed nothing. A shadow. A blip that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Where did it go?" Varric demanded. I don't know, Captain. It was there 1 second and gone the next. Could have been an error." But the officer's voice trembled. He didn't believe his own words. Moments later, another blip appeared, this time behind them. Then it vanished. Then one to the left, then gone, like wolves circling in the night. The Imperial fleet was being hunted. In the Iron Fang, Captain Dravos gripped the arms of his chair. "Open wide-range comms. Demand they identify themselves." The comm officer sent the signal into the void. Only static answered. Then, through the static, a single word broke through. "Leave." The crew froze. The word was low, cold, filled with authority that chilled their bones. "Who dares?" Dravos began to shout, but the lights cut out. The ship plunged into darkness, emergency red lights flickering weakly, engines powered down on their own. Systems died one by one. The Iron Fang drifted, powerless, as the crew scrambled in panic. On the Obsidian Spear, Captain Varric's comms officer gasped. "Sir, the Iron Fang is gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Varric demanded. "I mean, it's drifting, silent, no power, no signal." Before he could answer, another blip appeared on the sensors, closer this time, then another, then 5. They flickered in and out, never holding steady. The hunters were closing in. "Raise shields," Varric ordered. Shields responding. "Wait, no. Systems aren't obeying. It's like someone else is controlling them." The captain's blood ran cold. For the first time, fear entered his voice. "All ships, retreat. Pull back to the border." Engines roared. The scout fleet tried to turn back, but the void shifted. On every ship's view screen, shadows moved. Hulls darker than space itself slipped in and out of sight. Not a single weapon was fired. Not a single missile launched. The humans didn't need to attack. Their message was clear. You are not welcome here. Back on the Imperial capital world, the High Command watched the transmissions. Coming in. At first, laughter. Then disbelief. Then silence, as the images grew stranger, more impossible. The final transmission from the obsidian spear showed Captain Varric's face, pale and sweating. They are watching us, he whispered, eyes darting. Around the bridge. Everywhere we turn, they are already there. We cannot see them. We cannot fight them. The transmission cut out. Ending hook for part 3. The scout fleet had crossed into Terran space. They thought themselves hunters. Now, only silence remained. And in that silence, humanity's eyes never blinked. The void pressed heavy on. The Imperial scout fleet. One ship was already dead, drifting without power, its crew trapped in silent darkness. The others fled toward the border, but the shadows followed. Captain Varric gripped the armrests of his chair so hard, his knuckles turned white. His voice cracked with fury as he barked, "Helm, full power to engines! Break us free!" "Engines at maximum thrust, Captain," the pilot replied. "But it feels like we're not moving." The stars outside shifted unnaturally. No matter how the fleet turned, the border of Terran space never seemed closer. It was as if the void itself had swallowed them whole. On the Iron Fang, powerless and drifting, crew members whispered prayers to gods they had long abandoned. The silence around them was too thick, too watchful. Then, without warning, the ship's view screens flickered back on. And there it was, a shadow, vast, angular, impossibly dark, hovered just outside. At first, the crew thought it was an asteroid, but then it moved, smooth as a predator in water. Lines of faint blue light traced its edges, illuminating a hull design unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. It was human, and it was enormous. The crew gasped, frozen in terror as the ship slid past them with unnatural grace. Its surface seemed alive, absorbing starlight, bending it. No weapons were visible, but every instinct screamed of danger. The comms crackled. A voice emerged. Calm, cold, human. You were warned. The words echoed across all 6 Imperial ships at once. Captain Varric tried to sound defiant. "This is Imperial territory. You have no right." The voice cut him off. "You are trespassing. Leave and live. Stay and vanish." The comms fell silent. On the Iron Fang, crew members scrambled to restore systems. Lights flickered back to life. Engines restarted. It was as if the humans had given them permission to breathe again. "Captain," the engineer whispered, "we didn't fix anything. They turned it back on for us." The captain swallowed hard. For the first time, he felt the Empire's arrogance slip through his fingers. Meanwhile, back on the obsidian spear, Varric's rage boiled over. "No one speaks to me like this! Fire weapons! Target the shadow!" Weapons officers obeyed, fingers flying across consoles. The ship's guns roared, except no shots fired. The systems locked. Red warning lights flashed. "Access denied." "What is this?" the weapons chief shouted. The humans had taken control. And then, the shadows multiplied. Across the void, one by one, massive Terran warships emerged. Not from hyperspace, not from cloaks, but as if they had always been there, hidden in plain sight. Their hulls drank the light, darker than the void itself. Rows of blue and crimson markings glowed faintly along their spines, symbols the Imperials did not recognize. 6, 12, 20. More than the Imperial scouts could count. The fleet was surrounded. Varric's bravado collapsed into a whisper. "By the stars." His officers stared, wide-eyed, as realization struck. These weren't scouts, weren't border patrols. This was a fleet large enough to erase empires, and they had been here, waiting. Back on the Imperial capital, the Council watched the transmissions in horror. The feeds showed Terran ships circling like predators, moving in perfect silence, controlling every Imperial system with ease. Even the arrogant Marshal Sarath frowned, his laughter gone. Admiral Rahl muttered under his breath, "They were ready for us. They've always been ready." The chamber was filled with silence, broken only by the Emperor's voice. "Recall the scouts," he ordered. "Bring them home." But it was too late. On the obsidian spear, Captain Varric shouted, "Reverse! Course! Retreat now!" Engines blazed. The fleet turned back, but then every Imperial ship's comms lit up at once. A single transmission. From the humans, the voice was sharp, merciless, final. "You will not be warned again." And then, the void erupted, with light, not weapons fire, not explosions, just every Imperial screen going black at once. The humans had cut them off completely, leaving them blind and helpless in the dark. On the Council world, the last images flickered out. The chamber erupted in shouts, some demanding war, others calling for surrender. But the Elder of Varian only lowered his head. "I told you," he whispered. "They are watching. Always watching." The Imperial capital burned with outrage. The scout fleet's transmission had shaken the Council, but to the Emperor it was intolerable. "Our ships," he thundered, "were humiliated by shadows, by a primitive species barely a century into the stars." High Marshal Sarath bowed, his pride a blazing torch. "Then let us erase them, Majesty. Give me one fleet, and I will bring you Earth's ashes." The chamber roared with approval. Fear was buried beneath arrogance. Whispers of Terran strength were smothered by pride. Only Admiral Rahl remained silent, his eyes fixed on the holomap of Terran space. He saw not weakness, but the unknown, and the unknown was always dangerous. The Galactic Council chamber floated in silence. Countless voices from across the stars had been speaking only moments before, but now every being in the vast assembly sat still, their eyes fixed on the one figure who dared break tradition. It was the Elder of Varian, an ancient race older than most empires combined. His voice shook as he raised a trembling hand. His 6 eyes filled with a fear that unsettled even the proudest delegates. "Do not," the Elder whispered, and then louder, "do not set foot into Terran space." The words echoed through the chamber like thunder. A ripple of unease moved across the Council. For millennia, the Galactic Empire had expanded without challenge, crushing lesser civilizations, claiming new systems with arrogance. Warnings were common. But this was different. The Elder's face carried the weight of truth, and fear wrapped his words like iron chains. The Emperor's representative, a tall, armored noble with burning eyes, rose slowly. His voice was calm, almost amused. "Elder, are you saying that one small primitive planet is forbidden to us? That humans, creatures who only recently reached the stars, are to be feared by the Empire?" A murmur of laughter rolled through the chamber. The arrogance was thick, poisonous. The Elder did not smile. His gaze cut like a blade through the mockery. "You misunderstand, Imperial. This is no matter of respect. This is survival. Terran, space is a graveyard waiting for those who trespass. The humans..." He paused, his breath trembling. "The humans will not forgive. They do not forget, and they will never surrender." The silence that followed was colder than any void. Even those who mocked felt something gnawing at the edges of their minds, but arrogance was stronger than wisdom that day. The Imperial noble leaned forward, his voice sharp. The Empire fears no world, no people. If this council bends to superstition, we will not. Humanity will kneel just as all others before them have knelt. The elder slammed his staff on the floor and the entire chamber vibrated. His voice rose with fire. You think they will kneel? No! They will rise. They will fight you with fire in their blood and fury in their hearts. You cannot comprehend the humans. You cannot defeat them. I beg you, leave Terran space untouched. If you value your fleets, if you value your empire, if you value your existence, heed my words. The chamber boiled with voices. Some scoffed, calling the elder mad. Others whispered uneasily, remembering old rumors. Whispers of vanished fleets, of human warships that appeared and disappeared like shadows, of battles no one lived to tell. But the Emperor's decree was final. His representative turned, his cloak sweeping like a blade of defiance. The Empire bows to no warning. If the humans resist, they will be crushed. And just like that, the fate of billions was sealed. Outside the council chamber, whispers spread like wildfire. Diplomats carried tales back to their worlds, that the Empire had been cautioned, that a line had been drawn, that Terran space was forbidden. But among the humans, on the blue and green world called Earth, silence reigned. They had heard the whispers too. They knew the council had mocked the elder, and they were watching. Always watching. In the cold void along the Terran border, something stirred. A fleet, silent, hidden, waited in the darkness. Black hulls swallowed the starlight. No signals escaped, no transmissions revealed their presence. But their eyes, their sensors, their minds were locked on the borders, waiting for the Empire's arrogance to cross the line, and deep beneath Earth's oceans, in bunkers carved into stone and steel, leaders gathered in secret. They will. Come, one human general said grimly, his hands folded over the table. The Council does not believe in warnings. The Empire cannot ignore its pride. Another, older commander leaned forward. Then we will remind them why no one dares. Cross us. The galaxy has forgotten. It is time they remember. For centuries, humans had played a game of shadows, pretending weakness, hiding strength, allowing the galaxy to underestimate them. But now the mask would fall. The Elder's warning had been their last kindness. The Empire would not listen. Humanity would make them. The Council lights dimmed across the galaxy. Empires slept with arrogance in their hearts. But in the Terran sector, the night was restless. The humans waited in silence, and far away, engines flared in the dark. The first Imperial scouts were already on their way, bold, arrogant, and blind. They did not know that every move they made was being watched. They did not know the trap they were walking into. They did not know that Terran space was no ordinary territory. It was a line carved in blood, a line no empire could ever cross and live. Ending hook for Part 1. The Elder's voice echoed in the minds of those who had heard it, a prophecy the galaxy would soon regret ignoring. Enter Terran space, and you will never return. The Imperial. War Chamber burned with light and authority. Massive banners of gold and crimson hung from walls that stretched higher than most planets' capital towers. At the center, beneath a holographic map of the galaxy, the Emperor's advisors gathered in tight formation. The warning from the Elder of Varion had already reached them, whispered through diplomatic channels, repeated by trembling ambassadors. But here, in the beating heart of the Empire, those words meant little more than dust carried by the wind. High Marshal Sarath of the Imperial Navy slammed his fist against the war table. His voice was hard, sharp, and filled with contempt, superstition, fear, weakness. That is all the Council spreads. These Terrans, they are nothing, a small world on the edge of the Orion Arm, barely a century in spaceflight, and the Council dares tell us we cannot claim what is ours. Around him, other commanders nodded, their armor glinting in the light. They saw themselves as gods of conquest, the rightful rulers of the stars. A younger officer, braver, or perhaps more foolish than the rest, raised his voice. "High Marshal, if I may, there are records, fleets that vanished near Terran space, traders who never returned. Rumors that human ships move like no others, silent and unseen. Could there be truth in the Elder's warning?" The room grew tense. The silence pressed in, heavy as stone. Then the Marshal laughed, deep and cruel. "Rumors are weapons of the weak. Do you fear shadows, Lieutenant? Shall I tell the Emperor that one of his officers trembles at bedtime stories?" The laughter of the chamber was sharp, mocking. The young officer bowed his head, shame burning across his face, but the words lingered in the minds of some. Stories could be dismissed, whispers could be mocked, but fear, that never vanished so easily. The Imperial Prime Minister stepped forward, robes sweeping across the marble floor. His voice was calm, confident, dripping with superiority. "The Elder seeks to weaken us. He spreads fear to prevent our expansion. But we are the Empire. We decide where we march, where we conquer, where we rule. And no primitive species will dictate the path of the Imperial banner." A roar of approval filled the chamber. Still, in the shadows at the edge of the council, one man did not cheer. Admiral Raoul, older than most, his hair silver, his eyes scarred from battles long past, spoke slowly. "You call them primitive. Perhaps they are. But history has taught us one lesson: underestimate no one. I have seen weak nations bring down giants. I have seen desperate people fight like demons when cornered. And I have heard things about the humans. Things I cannot ignore," Marshal Serath sneered. Old man's fears. But Raoul did not falter. "Mark my words. If we march into Terran space without caution, we may awaken something we cannot put back to sleep." The Emperor himself, silent until now, finally rose from his throne. His presence filled the room, his gaze cutting through the air like fire. "Enough," he said softly. His voice carried like thunder. "The Empire bows to no one. Terran space will be entered. If the humans resist, they will be destroyed. That is the will of the Empire!" The chamber erupted with cheers, fists raised high, armor clashing like drums of war. Orders spread like wildfire. Prepare the scouts, ready the fleets, chart the borders of Terran territory. The Elder's warning had been heard. It had also been ignored. Beyond the shining towers of the capital world, the fleets stirred. Vast ships, cities, of steel and fire, moved from their docks, engines glowing like stars. Scouts were chosen, eager young captains filled with pride and ambition. They would be the first to cross the line, the first to test the Terran silence. On the decks of these ships, officers mocked the warnings. "Primitive humans," they said, "will have their world within a cycle." They laughed as if destiny were theirs to command. But in the deep void, beyond the Empire's borders, the Terran fleets were already watching. Hidden ships tracked every Imperial movement, their presence cloaked, their signals silent. Earth knew. Earth had always known. Back in the Imperial capital, Admiral Raoul stood alone on a balcony overlooking the endless sprawl of the city. Lights glittered across the horizon, like stars brought down to the surface. He closed his eyes, his scarred hand resting on the rail. He remembered wars the Empire had almost lost. He remembered enemies who had seemed small, weak, laughable, until their vengeance burned across entire systems, and he whispered to himself, "May the stars have mercy on us, for the humans will not."